Good morning, Gurpreet.
Good morning, Sonia.
Everybody, it's Gurpreet Johal, and Gurpreet is the brother of Jagtar Singh Johal. And I'm not sure if you are or are not familiar with the story, but it's fairly horrendous. Well, it's beyond fairly horrendous. It's horrendous. I hope I've got this right, Gurpreet. So Jagtar from Dumbarton in Scotland got married in India in 2017. Days later, he was arrested, accused of conspiracy to murder, said he was involved in a series of killings of right-wing leaders, claimed he was part of a terrorist gang, claimed he funded this. Of course, well, not of course, but Jagtar denies all allegations. Where are we up to? Has he been charged? Because by April this year, I don't believe he'd still been charged. He was just being held. Is that correct?
Up until April, Sonia, that was correct. So just to give it a bit of context, was Jagtar went to India to get married in October 2017. He got married. He was due to come back, but he decided to stay with his newly wedded wife to get her immigration paperwork sorted and spend time as you do once you're newly married, instead of coming straight back to the UK. Whilst out shopping with his wife and cousin, a car intercepted them, and he was taken out of a car, hooded and bungled into a van. So whilst the Indian authorities were have been saying that he's been arrested, that seemed more like an abduction, because he was hooded and taken into a van as opposed to being given an arrest warrant. And the manner where Jagtar was taken was of concern, because at the time I was in the UK, I had thought it may have just been a kidnapping for ransom.
Right.
It wasn't until days later that we found out. So going to the 7th of November 2017, the Chief Minister of Punjab had said that they had all the evidence, the highest police rankings, and this is 2017 we're talking about. They had all of the evidence. It wasn't until 1737 days later, sorry, 1726 days later, that charges have been framed against Jagtar, and in relation to a conspiracy to murder and financing terror. But it's taken 4.5 years for them to bring charges to Jagtar. Those charges are still not being framed against him. So it's not until September that Jagtar will actually have the opportunity to know what's libelled against him and thereafter plead to those. Jagtar's always said to the lawyer that he's innocent. As a family, we say he's innocent. But this is the impact of this is a British national who has been illegally detained, and I can say those words because the UN Working Group of Arbitrary Detention have also confirmed that there's no legal basis for Jagtar's detention.
Right.
Keir Starmer wrote to Boris Johnson. Eventually, the UK government, i.e. Boris Johnson, in June confirmed that Jagtar has been arbitrarily detained. The impact of that is that a British national continues to be illegally detained within an Indian prison by so-called friends of the UK government.
Oh.
And the worst of it is, within the first 4 days of Jagtar's abduction, he was subjected to inhumane torture. And as a result of the inhumane torture, being electrocuted, having his legs pulled apart, threatened that they were going to burn him alive, has resulted in blank papers being signed. And as a result of those blank papers, which Jagtar doesn't know what's been written on them, charges have been framed against him. So Jagtar, being a human rights activist within the UK, writing about the violations of the Sikh human rights violations that took place from 1984 onwards, is the main key of it. And the UN Working Group also found this. And what do India do? They've framed absurd charges against Jagtar in the cases, and 4.5 years on, a trial hasn't even started.
It's shocking.
Yeah, that's what we've been saying. A lot of people that listen and say, surely if the Indians had the evidence, they would have charged him, tried him, and convicted him. And this is the impact of it. The charges carry the death penalty. This is how serious it is. As a result of the UK government not taking the action that they should be taking to protect its citizens, Jagtar is facing the death penalty. And as a family, we never thought the charges would ever be framed. As a family, it's becoming a reality, because 4.5 years on, we never thought false allegations would become false charges, and
Right.
if false charges can lead up to the death penalty.
So that blank sheet that he was tortured to sign, and as you say, he was subjected to substantial torture, electric shocks, and I mean, legs pulled apart, beaten. So presumably what we're talking about here is a false confession that he signed.
Yeah, well, he signed a blank document, so he doesn't
Right, but it
actually
will be
know.
filled in, won't it?
Yeah, so that is what the reliance of the Indian authorities is in relation to Jagtar's whole case, a false confession statement, but which has been enough for the judge to frame charges against him.
Right.
Allegedly, there's 197 witnesses. So if it's taken 4.5 years to try, we've not even got to the trial stage, how long will it actually take for a trial to continue? Uh, the impact of it is most Sikhs have been undergone in India under these kind of trials, and they're found to be not guilty at the end of it. But what happens during that whole period is somebody's life has been put in a cell throughout that whole process. And for us, it's not just Jagtar's life that's within in prison. Our whole family's life's in prison. Jagtar's wife, who was only married 2 weeks, has not been able to spend the time that she should have been spending with her husband, and they're both separated as a result of that. I have two young children who've missed the last 4.5 years of their uncle,
Yeah.
and my brother's missed the last 4.5 years of seeing them grow up. So it's an impact that's had around the whole family, but not just the whole family. It's an impact that's had for the Sikh community, and now the British community are also waking up to it, where they're seeing that British national has been arbitrarily detained, and the British government should be doing more. And the question arises: we've got the government saying that they look after British values, look after their citizens, and we've got two leaders contending for a leadership programme at the moment, and Liz Truss, who's a foreign secretary, still hasn't called for Jagtar's release. So this is the impact. Whilst there's Liz Truss fighting for leadership, Rishi Sunak fighting for it, none of them have said what they're going to do to bring Jagtar back home.
So, I mean, as a family, I mean, you believe he's innocent. You say he was a peaceful activist who fought against hate regarding Sikhs. What do you think happened? Was he targeted?
Yeah, I believe he's generally targeted. He used to write for the Never Forget 84 website. He would translate from Punjabi into English so that Sikhs could know about the history of what violations that took place in 1984. As a result, he has been a target, and this has been confirmed within the UN Working Group Arbitrary Detention opinion, that one of the reasons that Jagtar has been targeted is because he was writing about the human rights violations. It's to the extent, Sonia, that there is no evidence against Jagtar. There's been fishing expeditions within the UK. There was raids on 5 individuals involved with the Free Jaggi Now campaign in September 2018. There was officers there saying that we're looking for information that's banned in India, not UK, but banned in India. And they were trying to use this evidence against Jagtar. Whilst the UK journalists didn't write about it, the Indian journalists published the names of the 5 individuals, implicated them in matters within the UK. And this was an attempt to try and shut down the Free Jaggi Now campaign, which has been led by myself and the family, because yes, as a family, we're saying he's innocent. I'm also a professional solicitor, and if I put my professional mind to it, and this is what one person would say is, if there was anything that the Indians had and Jack was guilty of what he's being accused of, they would have tried him by now and convicted him, not waited 4.5 years on. Leading expert human rights lawyers and other lawyers have looked at Jagtar's papers, and they can't find anything within the paperwork.
This is insane. This is insane. Absolutely insane. How's he coping?
So that's another thing we're restricted to as well, because the Indian authorities will not allow us to have adequate calls. I've had about 7 phone calls and 2 video meetings with Jagtar in the last 4.5 years. Most recently, Advocate Manjpur met him, who's a lawyer in India, and Jagtar has made a request to be able to speak to his family because the jail is denying him that access. So again, we're limited. The conversations that we do have with him are, what do you need? Because the very first call I remember lasted being about 45 seconds. The time I asked him how he is, and he was just trying to tell me what he needed, and the phone cut out. So it's one of those ones, we're limited to the government going to see him.
It's
And
heartbreaking.
yes, Sonia, it's due to the pressure of the public that the government are trying to meet him every 6 to 8 weeks. That's our lifeline, because that is allowing us to know how Jagtar's coping or how he's doing. But he has asked the question, what is the British government doing?
Well, what is the British government doing?
Well, they tell us they're doing everything. They're raising his case at the highest level. But when it comes to it, it's all words. We're not seeing any action out of it. It's clear. I've said this before, rightfully. Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, the British government called for her release because she was arbitrarily detained. Jagtar, they have failed to do so. Iran is a country that the British government have said that is not a friend, but India is a friend. So what is stopping the UK government other than a trade deal? So this is why it's really affecting everyone, that they're so concentrated on trade deals. And Sonia, I've said this to many presenters, and I'll say this to yourself. This could be you. This could be your loved one.
Yeah.
That could be in any country. And just because Britain are putting trade over human rights, that they cannot protect you. And I've been campaigning along with others to have British Rights Abroad group, so that consular services is shredded into law as a result, so that we're protected. We know we have that protection. But it's one of those ones where the British government are not doing enough. Liz Truss currently is, I would say, too busy with her leadership side, that she hasn't taken the action that she should be as a foreign secretary.
They're fairly horrified for you in the comments. Let me read you some. Marvelous Miss V says, I am Sikh, and this is so terrifying that the Indian government can do this. Elizabeth Hartley says, there is plenty of evidence against him. For a start, he is brown, and white supremacy is rife at the top of the dictating to the submissive Indian authorities. Do you think there's some truth in that, Gurpreet?
Well, in terms of Jagtar, it's terrible of what's going on. The evidence only that we have is that, yes, he's brown, and as a result, he is not getting the same kind of treatment that other people may have got in respect of this. And there is no evidence in respect of what Jagtar has been accused of.
Yeah.
Jagtar has, it's simple. If there was evidence, you would have been charged, tried, and convicted. Not 4.5 years on, still facing charges that you've not even pled to yet. That's the extent of the system that's happened.
Yeah.
And there are ways to expedite these matters.
Yes.
My request, any Indians listening to now, my request still is, you've made a mistake, let the boy go, let him live the rest of his life. And what it is so that he can move on with his life. But as it is, don't prolong matters just to keep him in, to make it seem as we've got evidence, because it's categorically clear there's no evidence. NGOs such as Reprieve, Redress, do not call for a release and return unless they've seen evidence of there being nothing.
Absolutely. I'm familiar with both organizations. Everybody wholeheartedly supports you. Send me any links, please, via email that I can include in the description so we can keep up with the story, we can support. Thank you for joining us this morning, Gurpreet. I'm genuinely sorry for you. It is a horrendous situation. Everybody, we must do what we can to raise awareness of this. Jagtar Singh Johal has been there 4.5, almost 5 years, and it is horrendous. And as Drumstick points out in the comments, Gurpreet, it's almost worse than just doing nothing, promising they will help and then sitting on their hands. Thank you for joining us this morning. Take good care of yourself, and please keep us up to date. We will highlight this as much as we humanly can. Everybody, Gurpreet Johal. Take care, Gurpreet.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.